Guys, let's roll. Oh, I've got my Navy veteran hat on and my HMS Ganges polo shirt. So I guess I should be saying, let's sail. Okay, the image behind. Where is it? I've already told you I joined the Royal Navy at 15, didn't I? Yeah, that's HMS Ganges. People talk about Oxford and Cambridge. Ben Habib went to a tough boarding school at Rugby. Supposed to be pretty tough there. I went to a tougher boarding school, HMS Ganges. I spent just over a year of my life there. I can see the signal tower, the mast, yeah, the dock, yeah, where we used to go sailing every day. Anyhow, there is a purpose to this video, guys. I want to talk about no matter how much a person wants to do something, the willpower may be there, but the body will sometimes let him down. Anyhow, let's just go through. I'll show you some video clips of what it was like at Ganges, and then I will read you an article I wrote many years ago. I think I titled it The Mast. I may well keep the same title now. So bear with me. Okay, let's go then. Let's have a look at HMS Ganges, shall we?
There's a village they call Shotley to the east of Ipswich town, the port of Felixstowe across the way. There's a concrete ship called Ganges near the Orwell flowing down and skirted by the shores of Harwich Bay. We joined as nozzers new, kitted out in navy blue. We punched each other's teeth out in the gym. We march, we double fast, and we climb that bloody mast. The Foreign Legion never was as grim.
Okay, well, we won't go to the annex. The annex is where you go to for 3 weeks before you join the main establishment. Have a look at a few clips from around the time that I was there. It will get interesting, I promise, and you will learn something. Like everything I do, there's always a reason.
The midday meal, we get about 3 choices, but the cooking isn't too good. But that isn't surprising, really, considering they've got to cook for 1,800 juniors, and also they've got to get them through the dining hall in about half an hour.
And I'll pay for it.
Yes, that's a very welcome sight on a Wednesday. Second-class juniors getting 10 shillings, first-class juniors getting 15.
And this, of course, is in the Nelson Hall. We have all the
Yes, we
figures.
have several figureheads. That's one of the original Ganges, and also one of St Vincent's. And in the finer points of seamanship, there's several ways to coil down a rope. It's being cheesed down there. And we are taught several bends and hitches. One of the most important of these is the bowline. And being as your life might depend on this knot, you must know it thoroughly, and the best way to teach you is to tie it on your own body. That is the fancy knot called the Turk's head. And then there's more marching. But by this time, it's only learning the finer points of drill, and it doesn't seem so bad. In fact, you can nearly enjoy it.
But never quite.
No, not quite. We have a divisional march past once a week, with the commander taking the salute.
Harking back to specialist branches for a moment, Paul, what's your own?
My branch is communications. When we pass out at Ganges, we have to be able to receive Morse at 22 words a minute, and also to be able to send it. We also do semaphore. That's me. I don't think I could have been very many weeks on course when I did that. And we also do typewriting.
Well, that's receiving Morse.
Yes, we receive Morse straight onto the typewriter. And there's also, we use the oldish flashing lamp.
Well, Paul, on that piece of film, I think we saw just about all the signalling methods there are, both ancient and modern, including an Aldous lamp. But now we're back on the jetty and looking at the signal tower up there. What's that signal tower actually used for?
Well,
the signal tower is used to train juniors in receiving flashing, and it's also used to send messages out to ships which might come into the harbour at any time.
Well, there's an orders at work up there now, I think. It looks as though it's pointing our way as well. How about you read
Papa,
that?
India, Papa, Echo, pipe, Delta, Oscar, Whiskey, November. Pipe down. Sounds like somebody's trying to be rude to us.
One of your friends out there, or maybe he's being rude to me. Unfortunately, neither of us have got the chance of being rude back to him, but still. Well, let's not imagine that it's all work and no play, to use the old cliche.
You know, I was in communications. Didn't realize what prompted this video was it suddenly popped up on my feeds that some people have released a pile of videos and documentaries on HMS Ganges and the Royal Navy. And so I thought, yeah, why not? Let's do a video about it. I guess this video is more for me, really, to walk down memory lane. But I do think it makes a point at the end, and I'll come back to it. Incidentally, whilst I was at Ganges, started to learn semaphore, and it was cancelled halfway through. Semaphore was no longer used. We'd use the oldest 10-inch lanterns, 20-inch lanterns, even ones you could fix to your binoculars. I still sometimes like to tune into Morse broadcasts, even though it's no longer used in the Royal Navy. So, yeah, that was good fun. I enjoyed it. Right. We're starting to get somewhere now, guys. Any idea what that is? Let's play a bit of the video. This is from Blue Peter.
Until this week, it's spent the last 81 years 48 metres high in the sky in deepest Suffolk. Now, it's made of wood, and on this side, you can see that it's been fixed onto something. If I tell you that it's a button, you probably think I've gone crazy, but it's absolutely true. This is one of the wooden buttons that used to be put on top of the masts of sailing ships in the olden days. And this particular button was fixed at the very top of a mast belonging to HMS Ganges, our Royal Navy training school. The school was closed in 1976, but the mast remained. And now it's going to be the centrepiece of a new housing development. Needs a good clean up though, as you can see, so it's been taken down, which is why I'm holding the button.
It's the top of the mast that you see on the right. I've actually sat on that button. Yeah. Well, you see where this is going now. First, let me show you what it was like to go up the mast at HMS Ganges. Start climbing, boys. John Noakes is going up. This is where I climbed.
Although we were already 30 feet from the ground, half the boys who were going to climb up the rigging hadn't even started. As the music changed to another tune, I could see ahead that we were approaching a difficult part of the climb. Getting onto the...
What you see there is what they call the devil's elbow. You had to climb out and over. Sometimes boys would fall, but there was a net below, a long way below. There was a hole there for people who didn't have the courage to go up over the elbow. Yeah, let's carry on, is it? We're halfway up.
The first platform was going to be a problem because of the overhang.
That's a bit dodgy, isn't it?
That platform was where my troubles first started. Robert was one rung ahead by the time I got round it. I had to struggle to catch Robert up. I knew I couldn't stop because the rest of the mast manners were breathing on my heels. We were getting higher and higher, and the mast was gradually filling up with boys, although I'm sure the ones at the bottom weren't feeling half as tired as I was. Now a pattern was beginning to appear on the mast as some of the boys stepped out onto the yard arm.
I'm out of breath. I got no breath left.
It was physically exhausting to climb up to there. That yard arm, you see the boys just going out on there. That's about as far as, well, most junior sailors would go. It's quite high. Most people never got further than the devil's elbow. Some boys just have to go further, don't they?
By this time I was approaching the second platform, which is called the Half Moon.
I think you need an oxygen mask. Now I go down there, don't I? Hope I haven't held everybody off, have I?
Because I was going to shin up to the top of the mast, I had to go first up this final ladder. Robert, the normal button boy, followed behind me.
Oh, I'm nearly at the top of this ladder. And then comes a very dodgy bit.
This was because there were only 6 steps left on the ladder, and then I got to stand on the crosspiece with nothing but the mast to hold on to.
And about this time, you're getting really, really frightened. The wind is blowing. Your hands are numb with cold. John Noakes from Blue Peter, brave man.
And this thing is wobbling up here.
Now I was within 15 feet of the top. All that was left was the shinning up the mast.
I don't think I'm going to do very much.
I just couldn't manage it. My legs were feeling like lead. I decided that this was the moment to give way to the expert. Even so, my troubles weren't over. Changing places on a rope ladder 127 feet from the ground has its dicier moments.
It looks as though I'm really out of breath to speak. It looks as though the button has finally beaten Noakes.
But it wasn't going to beat Robert. He made it look so effortless, and it took him no time at all to shin up the mast. But the hardest part of all was still to come. When Robert got to the top, he would have to swing himself round so that he could actually sit on the button. One quick flick and he was there.
Right. That was really difficult. I know because I've done it. I was, well, I can't tell you how I felt.
Sitting 143 feet above the parade ground. At sunsets on all Navy ships, the white ensign is lowered, and HMS Ganges is no exception.
Right, on the big day, I was in charge of, I was what they called a JLRO, a junior leading radio operator. It was a good position to be. It was a good rank to have at Ganges. We had more privileges than the others. And on that day, I was responsible for the colour party, lowering the ensign. My parents were there. They were really proud.
And now it's time to come down, and it's all done to music. Suddenly I feel awfully alone up here.
Well, what did you think of that, guys? HMS Ganges. There are videos out there of daily life. You've got to see it to believe it. Sailing, first thing in the morning, cutters, whalers, shooting, lots of shooting, boxing, all kinds of sports. It was an incredible time. Discipline. You could get beaten. Quite a lot of boys got beaten with a stick. But it didn't do us any damage. And it turned us into the kind of men we are today. If you wonder why I'm the way I am, it's because I'm a Ganges boys. Ganges boys, when they joined the fleet, were very much prized because they were trained from the age of 15, when others into the Navy joined at 18. So we were all already trained when we got to sea. Actually, for communicators, after we left Ganges, although we were fully trained up with regards Morse code, flashing lights, flags and stuff like that, we went off to HMS Mercury then to hone our skills, to increase the speed that we could send and receive Morse at. Some great videos out there on how they trained us. I loved that school. Oh well. Let's move on. Now we better get to the article, hadn't we? Just pause. Here we are, guys. We're back. It's an article I wrote in 2007. The Mast. Devil's Elbow. The Half Moon. Top Gallant. Can't remember. A Ganges boy. I was over here somewhere, down on the bottom left. Okay, let's get on with the article. Guys, I'm a tough cookie, but as Richard Taylor said, the Welsh can be passionate and they can be emotional. If I do, I'll pause. Here we go then, guys. Let's climb the mast together, is it? The mast. Been there, seen it, almost done it. Keyword, almost done it. At the age of 15, in 1964, I managed to get a special dispensation to leave the grammar school I attended, having been lucky enough to pass my 11 plus, and went off to sea in the Royal Navy. We still had one then. Led then by officers who had fought in the war. My first skipper was Captain Godfrey Place, VC, of Tirpitz fame. A brave, brave man. I shook his hand. And a fine man he was. He was a damn good skipper. I soon found out that I had not run off to sea, but rather straight back to another type of school, HMS Ganges, outside of Ipswich. It would be another year before I sailed off to the delights of Singapore and the Far East. Mythical places to an untravelled valley boy, and 2.5 years before I would return home after a real cruise around half the world loaded down with presents and memories. Why I chose to pass up on the chance to go on to higher education was all down to comics. I had read a story in The Wizard, or it might have been The Rover. Comics then, you could read them. They weren't just pictures and images, they were stories. I had read a story in The Wizard, or it might have been The Rover, and it told of the work that the radio operators carried out in the Royal Navy. I was hooked, and nothing would stop me. Besides, my father had also gone off to sea as a young boy before joining the army in time for the war to start. So how could he refuse me? So where is this post going? I would like to say that it ends in the triumph of the spirit over human cowardice, but sadly it does not. It is one of failure and a boy learning that in life sometimes you cannot succeed no matter how brave your heart is. Sometimes failing makes you stronger. My time at Ganges was one of the best times in my life. Shooting, sailing, boxing, we had to do it all. No health and safety for us, we were allowed to live. In school, as well as continuing our education, we also learnt the skills of seamanship, rules of the road, navigation, and in the case of the sparkers, typing, Morse code, etc., flashing lights. Well, Sundays after church parade, the day was our own within the confines of the camp. Well, Sundays after church parade, the day was our own within the confines of the camp, and that is when it happened. I looked at that mast that dominated the skyline, and I realized I must climb to the top. I did not want to, but I somehow knew at the age of 15. I did not want to, but I somehow knew at the age of 15 I must climb the mast and stand atop it and salute. I really didn't want to do it, guys. Bit like this channel. I didn't really want to do it, but I had to. Like all newcomers to Ganges, one of the first things you were compelled to do, whether you wanted to or not, was climb up to the Devil's Elbow. I mentioned that. Halfway up and then back down. That was fearful enough for me the first time, but after a while it held no fears, and I would take a Tarzan book by Edgar Rice Burroughs out onto one of the yard-arms and pass the afternoon away from the 1,000 other boys in the camp reading of how Tarzan learned to read the black ants that crawled over the pages of the book. In the Tarzan books, Tarzan learns to read, he finds some books and he has to decipher it, and he doesn't realize that the letters are letters. He thinks they are like black ants, yeah? He learned how to read the black ants that crawled over the pages of the book. Early Tarzan books are brilliant. The next Sunday I made my attempt, telling none of my friends. I went early and started to climb, past the Devil's Elbow and up. Past the Devil's Elbow and up, higher than I had ever been. Finally I was up at the top yardarms and the view was breathtaking. I could do this. I was frightened, but I could do it. I'll never forget this. Never. Image then looking down at the Devil's Elbow. I took a breather and looked up at the sky, and the sky seemed to spin around the button that was atop the mast. I felt dizzy and sick and clung to the mast. It narrowed to the extent that I could now just about wrap my arms around. I started then to shin up the last 15 or 20 feet to the top. I was petrified, and then a small respite. 6 feet or so from the top was a bar that extended just a few feet either side of the mast and was used during manning the mast when one boy would stand either side. I sat there for a long time, and I looked up and then down. Like a cat, I had become too frightened to go up and too frightened to go down. What was to be done? I was convinced I would fall and the net below would not save me. What drives a boy on? Fear of dying or fear of being laughed at? Way below, and on the other side of the parade ground, a small group had gathered to see what fool was attempting the mast this time. I was that damned fool. I had to go on, and so I reached the top. Clutching hold of the lightning conductor that protruded about 3 feet from the centre of the button, which was about 18 inches in diameter, I sat atop the mast. I had made it. Well, I got farther than John Noakes, didn't I? I sat atop the mast. Here's where it all goes pear-shaped. But I knew in my heart I had achieved nothing. I knew in my heart I had achieved nothing. I must stand and grip the metal rod between my knees whilst holding the top of the rod with my hands. Then release the rod and stand erect and then salute. Only then would I have climbed the mast. I could not do it. I got to the half-raised position and my whole body started trembling, and I was forced to sit and clutch the rod for dear life. How many times I tried, I cannot say, but at every attempt my body would tremble out of my control and make it impossible for me to stand. My hands by now were numb from cold, and yet sweat was pumping from me. I had failed. Let you read the rest. What were the comments? So you were at Ganges. Okay, guys, you can't see the comments. I'll read it out. So you were at Ganges, enlisted at 15. I was at Halton, enlisted at 15. Google Trenchard Brats. That's the school for the army. His dad told him that if he could stick it as an Halton brat, he could stick anything. I wonder if there's a mindset that develops when you enlist at such a young age, one that says I will not be pushed around another inch. Another guy, just an afterthought. But you went back at a later time and did it, eh? The Green Arrow replies, an Alton man, eh? Excellent. You stood by your beds and we stood by our bunks. At HMS Ganges we were referred to as trogs, trained ratings of Ganges. Strangely enough, I did attempt it one more time. Again, I failed because my body, though, my mind let me down once more. I wish I could have told you different. Good luck and salute. Perhaps one day when we rebuild our forces, we can reopen the schools for the brats and shrugs of this world. They went on to be the backbone of the service. Well, there you go, guys. That's when I learned it doesn't matter how strong you think you are. Sometimes you can't always do what you want. This still lives in my mind. Bloody emotions. Ah, well, you've been listening to the Green Arrow, and now you know that's why I am that I am. Wouldn't have it any other way. Okay, guys, see you on the next one.